Hey, hey, hey! It's episode 4 of Alien Earth, entitled Observation. This is an hour of TV that contends with, well, lots of observation, culminating in a pretty gnarly and outrageous finale. Before we dig in, though, please don't forget to hit subscribe, and if you enjoy my dulcet tones, perhaps you could even leave a like. Thanks, now let's dig into the episode. The opening title sequence starts off with a pretty disquieting visual of a doll head on the beach. Obviously, the metaphor here has something to do with synthetics, but it also feels sort of like the teddy bear in Season 2 of Breaking Bad, i.e. a foreboding image that will come back into play later on. Right off the bat, we have Kirsch theorizing on the signal entering Wendy's noggin, followed up by everyone's favorite barefoot boy genius being a real prick.
You can hear
the xenomorph, yeah, just assume I'm ahead of you always, which don't you have little experiments to run? These creatures aren't going to discover themselves.
Kirsch looks like he's about to smack the shit out of Boy Cavalier. Before Cavalier can have some time with Wendy, Joe walks in.
Oh good, it's the brother.
Joe is quick to notice something is off. Arthur plays around with the volume settings on Wendy, and she recalls what she saw the previous night when she visited the lab. Disturbingly, she refers to the embryo as the baby, suggesting that she sees the xenomorph as more than just a monster, perhaps echoing Marcy's discussion with Kirsch about the scorpion.
The eggs?
No. It's a baby.
Love the retro-futuristic soundboard, by the way. Long story short, Wendy can basically speak xenomorph now. This is intriguing both to herself and to Cavalier, and the two agree to experiment with this new form of communication, with Wendy specifically believing that she has been chosen by the Xenos, thus adding to her slowly growing god complex, which some of her fellow Lost Boys have been picking up on. The scene has an interesting and most likely intentional goof.
Asimov said above a certain level, technology is indistinguishable from magic.
That quote is not by Isaac Asimov, but instead another science fiction luminary, Arthur C. Clarke, the writer of 2001: A Space Odyssey, which also happens to have been a major influence on the original Alien.
When a hostile alien species decides to speak, one needs to ask why.
Adam Ines and Cavalier have a nice little powwow, in which Ines makes a bit of an assumption and states outright that now the xenomorphs know about Wendy hearing them. That feels like a bit of a logical leap to me, but whatever. I'm not the personal assistant to one of the 5 wealthiest people on Earth. Wendy shows Joe her room, and they have a little heart-to-heart. We learn that there was a war occurring while Wendy was in the hospital, leading to Joe's absence when she was taken in by Prodigy. Also, they watch Ice Age Continental Drift. I don't really have any comment on that, but cool. Meanwhile, Morrow is still grooming poor Slightly, trying to convince this poor kiddo to bring him an ovomorph. In the process, he gets Slightly to give his real name, Arush Singh, and in that moment, seems pretty convinced that he's absolutely nailed his mission. Oh, also, we learn that Morrow's first name is Kumi, so, do with that what you will. Kirsch, meanwhile, knows there's something up. He notices that Morrow's eyeline is wonky for a moment in Slightly's POV feed, and he certainly lets on to Slightly that he knows there's someone in his head. He also drops this very relatable banger.
That's what being an adult is, a constant test.
Then it's time for a little optometry. The entry point for Teoculus to get in and meet Lamb Chops is a classic iris, or aperture, basically what you would see inside of a camera lens. Kind of like the ones used as part of the production design in the OG Alien when they're closing off the air ducts. Boy Cavalier watches in amazement as Teoculus causes the kind of ocular damage that I don't think I can show on YouTube. This scene culminates in the now mind-controlled sheep attempting to stand on 2 legs, suggesting that Teoculus is used to bodies that do so, which, creepy. Arthur takes Dame Sylvia out to the most secluded place he can find, and he expresses his worries about the hybrid project.
He sends them to a crash site, into combat.
Yes, he breaks rules. He takes risks. Maybe that's why he's so far ahead.
Sylvia basically just says that Boy Cavalier is a disruptor. What you gonna do? Arthur makes some good points, including this bit where he just calls out the primary moral conflict of the show.
I mean, if we did this wrong, Best case, we got a bunch of AIs running around thinking that they're human. Worst case, we killed 6 kids.
Sylvia, by the way, is kind of manipulative. She basically ignores everything Arthur says and plies him into silence by promising to cook dinner. Then Nibs pops up out of nowhere to drop this bombshell.
I'm pregnant.
What?
And poor Dame Sylvia has to explain how sperm works to Nibs, who does not want to hear about how her new body works at all. She compares herself to Jesus and is also more than a little agitated about talking about the crash site.
I said stop!
Dame Sylvia is understandably a little freaked out and calls in security, who are to relay that they're experiencing a level 3 event. Adam Ines meets with Joe and essentially blackmails him into working with Prodigy as a sort of resident Marcy advisor. Ines makes it clear, amongst other things, that Wendy is property of Prodigy and that there's no chance she'll go home with Joe. Which, yeah, is basically what we all assumed. Wendy gets a surprise visit from Boy Cavalier. He immediately calls what online theorists have been talking about since the beginning, the idea that the xenomorph is the crocodile and the sound that Wendy is hearing is the clock.
You fought the crocodile, and now you can hear the clock.
He also allows for Joe to stick around so long as he doesn't become a distraction and, more importantly, that Wendy helps him understand what the aliens are saying. Meanwhile, the sheep looks on all creepy-like while Toodles requests a name change from Kirsch.
I'm a grown man, a scientist. I want a real name.
So he's now Isaac, I guess. Morrow has managed to locate Slightly's mother. Now, instead of asking for an egg, Morrow wants Slightly to sneak a person into the lab to in turn sneak out a Xeno the old-fashioned way. So in case you wanted more blackmail, here's some blackmail. Unfortunately for Morrow, Kirsch is listening in on Slightly. And then I guess fortunately, he doesn't appear to do anything about it. At least not yet. Kirsch visits the eggs, and we get this sexy slime shot. I know myself and a lot of other fans have wanted more slime in the show, so this feels like a bit of a cock tease. During a hangout, Isaac lets it be known that the hybrids can learn basically whatever they want. It's kind of surprising, given their purpose, that this would come as a shock.
Like a library. You just upload them and suddenly all the information from the book is suddenly in your head.
Wait, we can do that?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's in Shmi's character that he wouldn't realize this? I don't know, it seems a little weird. Then we learn a new bit of lore about the 5 corporations that rule the world.
Well, the old planet had something called governments, right, where people used to, they would vote for who they wanted making decisions, right? That didn't work.
It's now been confirmed that, at least in this universe, government as a concept has been abolished. Then Slightly rightfully gets upset about Wendy's brother being allowed to stay. He figures that his family should also be allowed to come by, as should the other kids, and Joe agrees with him.
Your families should be here, all of them. Instead of having funerals, they should have had parties. You were dying, and now, look at you.
Later, while Wendy is busy making sweet Xeno music, Slightly is watching Joe from outside his window, very creepy, and showcasing once more how each of our hybrids is individually handling the whole situation, with some doing better than others. Finally, at the tail end of the episode, we get a little slice of Xeno action. Wendy visits with her brother's lung, which is not connected to him, despite what I thought in my last recap. And man, this part is freaking cool. We finally get a decent shot of a fresh chest burster, much better in my opinion than that scene in Covenant. We also now know that a Xeno embryo can be birthed from a lung, seemingly without any difficulty. Most importantly though, Wendy seems to communicate with the chest burster, which even lets her pet it, much to Kirsch's interest. Overall, this is probably the weakest episode of Alien Earth thus far. A big part of that is down to something that kinda had to happen eventually, and that's a lack of the xenomorph. With that threat donezo for pretty much the entire episode, there's definitely a distinct lack of tension. That said, it does end with a bang, and in the lead up to that, we get plenty of world building and setup for the rest of the season, including Nibs freaking out and slightly being used by Morrow, who is in turn potentially being used by Kirsch. So, some questions. What was up with the doll head in the ocean at the top of the episode? How far will Kirsch allow Morrow's plan with Slightly to go? Is Yutani ever going to actually do anything? Will Teoculus burrow into Boy Genius's skull? All this and maybe more, maybe less, on the next episode of Alien Earth. Until then, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Bye now!